all right. How is everybody doing today on YouTube? I got asked to do another kind of like leaf spring tech type video here. Kevin, I'm doing this one. I know I will list your handle, what I call your handle on here on this video when I get it edited. I'm doing this, is going to call this Leaf Spring Tech 2.0, maybe. I don't know. But he asked me to do a leaf spring kind of how I do my trucks. I'm going to get into that in a second. I'm going to show you a few things, free modifications that you can do here. So that's what we're getting into. I'm going to go over your shock hoops, and then I forgot to get them. I got to grab them out here. The best performance you're going to get switching to your shock and your shock hoops, and I'll explain all that and break it down to you guys. Now, I'm not no super guru with this or anything, but I've run these trucks a lot. I've ran basically every configuration that you can run over the years, minus the guys that have the custom leafs, like the Twisted Fab stuff, which is not my jam. They're fantastic looking and everything, but, you know, to me, that they don't look scale. They're scale for like a hardcore off-road rock, you know, an actual rock crawler. So to me, putting them on a scale truck defeats the purpose of having a scale truck. But that's just my personal opinion. Everybody has an opinion. It's like assholes and shit comes out of it. That's just, you know, some people agree, some people don't. So let me get into this video here for you guys and break it down and explain some things and some stuff that I've learned over the years. So we're going to stop this and I'm going to turn it back on, and I'll have the shocks laying out here. So let's dive down into this a little further. We got the shocks laying out here. I've got the shocks coordinated with the shock hoops, stock, and then modified how I run mine. So let's break into the leaf spring stuff first. So what I have here is your basic leaf spring pack. You'll see main leaf, medium leaf, small leaf. That's your basic RC 4-wheel drive leaf spring pack that you're going to get on your trucks. That's just mainly how they come. Here's another look at them. And then the spring pack will just go together. They'll be bolted to your axle. Main leaf, medium leaf, small leaf. So when you get your truck, it depends what model you get. Some of them are being shipped without the springs in the shocks. See, these don't have the springs in them. Some of them are still being shipped, I think, with springs in the shocks. What I would recommend is, number one, pull the springs. You don't need the internal spring in your shock, okay? If you're running your leaf, you don't need that. These are more aesthetic purpose. Hey, I got shocks on my truck. That's what these mainly are for. You don't need the leaf and you don't need the spring. Keep the springs, because over time, if you don't break these, they will start wearing in and they'll start flexing and they'll start moving. We're going to get into that. I don't want to go too far right now. I want to stay where we're at. So remove your springs from your shocks is the first thing I can recommend for you to do when you take that RC 4-wheel drive out of the box. All four of them. Remove all four springs. Next, when you get into your leaf pack, you got your main, your medium, and your small. Depending on what weight you're planning on with this truck, depending on what... now, this is just covering if you're just taking it out of the box, and this is stock modification stuff. In the front, if you're going to be running a lot of accessories like a winch and stuff like that, with a lot of other weight added up front, I would recommend keeping the big and the medium. That's me. That's just what I would recommend. If you're not planning on running a bunch of heavy bumpers and winches and stuff, you can get away with running your main and your small, okay? You can get away with running your main leaf and your small helper. You can get away with that. Don't just run this main leaf, okay? Just don't do that. You need something else there. You need the helper to help keep this spring, you know, somewhat straight. You're just going to bend these no matter if you have them on the front or the back. Now moving on to the back, you'll have the same pack, main, medium, small, okay? You'll have that same pack there if I can get these pushed together. These are brand new, so I keep an extra set here just in case. So you have these, okay? I would recommend if you have an SUV, and this is what's nice about the leaf springs. You can actually tune these the same way you're tuning a shock. So you can add and take away leaves. And that's the best thing I could probably give you with your weight of your truck. That's what I do. I take and add leaves, put it together, see how it does. I prefer in my pickups the main leaf and the small helper in the rear. And I've never had a trouble running it that way. But if you go back and watch when I was talking about the 4Runner, I had to add a couple extra springs because the SUVs are heavier and have more weight, and you're hauling more accessories, and the more you add, the more weight shoves it down, blah, 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 blah. If you have an extreme amount of weight in the back, don't just, no matter what, just don't ever run one leaf spring. If you're doing super, super easy trailing with an anti-rat bar, you might get away with running one leaf. You're definitely going to have to run an anti-rat bar eventually. If you've run one leaf and you're just doing that light trailing and you haven't bent one of these up, consider yourself super lucky. Okay, camera's getting ready to shut off. I got to restart this. Okay, let's get back into it. So we were at the rear. So what I usually do is I run the main leaf and I run the small leaf. And that usually gets me just fine. Okay. So that's a free if you don't want to do any kind of leaf spring modification. And what I'm talking about, leaf spring modification, is actually modifying your main leaf to take some of the spring tension out of it. And I'm going to explain that now. So you've got your spring pack figured out, how you want it. It's still not going to give you a great, everybody wants this stupid, crazy articulation that technically really you don't absolutely need for a scale trail truck. I try to get my stuff about to where a 2 to 3 tire stack. And I'll shut this camera off and restart that with that now. All right, what I was talking about, this is the suspension travel that I try to achieve. This is your basic, 3 tire stack here on this truck. They kind of lopped over because there's no rims in it. But my wheels pretty much stay planted on the ground right here. I will measure this real quick. I just wanted everybody to see this before we go any further. Personally, myself, I don't really technically need any more than that. If you're getting into any more than that, just buy one of the aftermarket guys like the Twisted Fab companies, in my opinion, leaf springs, because you're just doing some hardcore stuff with it. That's more rock stuff, so you're probably going to end up cutting the body up and everything. So that's your jam, not my jam. To me, that's not what a scale truck looks like. It's a scale truck that looks like it's been cut up to do hardcore rock crawling stuff. So that's cool too. But, I try to achieve this full tire stuff up in here. So when we pull this down, we'll measure this and we'll see how much travel we got out of that. Okay, so we got our tire stack here and we have our digital caliper. So we got right around 4 inches of travel right there on our mic. There's our digital caliper. That's in inches. That's what we got, 4 inches out of that. There's a stock RC 4-wheel drive leaf pack right there. This is still fitting fairly tight in the outside, so it got about, that's about what we got, 4 inches. I don't really, like I said, I personally don't need any more than that. Hey man, if you do, you do. That's great. And that's with a completely stock RC 4-wheel drive leaf pack that I've modified. So let's get into how I modified that. And we'll go into a little further. This is how I'm going to I got to set this up before we go too far. Okay, so basically I've moved this around. These screws are here and the lock nuts to simulate if this was bolted to whatever AR or the K44s or your Yodas or whatever. Just pretend like the axle nuts are the axle housing here. That's what we're doing. So before I get into this little modification trick, there's also another reason why I have these bolted together. When you do this, I recommend that you leave these bolted down to your front and rear ends when you're modifying and doing this little trick, okay? So let's explain what these leaf springs really are, okay? In actuality, they're a spring steel, okay? That's basically what these are. They're just a spring steel leaf. That's some guys have cut up, I've seen, like pull starter cords and crap like that, and made like leaves and stuff. I mean, it's just not like there's only one way to reference skin a cat here. That's just, one reference. There's just not like there's any wrong way or right way. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. This way is you're not spending a bunch of money blowing out onto buying other parts. You're just utilizing what came with the kit, came with the truck, came with your RTR, whatever, your stock leafs. And technically, these things work very well once you do these modifications to them. I've been doing this quite a bit now. And then I'll break it down and we'll get into like your buying options, like you're buying the upgrades, and what to expect out of that. So, by far from what, I haven't bought the Twisted Fab stuff, and he has different stages. Like I said, it's not my jam. If I had a cut up rig with like no doors on it and hacked apart bed and glued together stuff and everything like that, then I would consider probably getting one if that's into your. Most guys seem like they're into that. I'm more into the actual scale stuff. So, yeah. Anyhow, let's get back into this. So I'll get into the, if you're buying performance stuff, to just spend more money. If you're loaded that much and you just can blow the money, then hey, more power to you. Blow the money and buy the stuff. But this is options that you are given that you can do, that you don't have to blow any more money after spending almost $600 for buying an RTR or whatever, like, of the nature of the beast there that you have acquired. So to get into this here, as I was saying, this is a spring steel. That's what this is. And when I say spring steel, it's, it's just look it up on, you just Google spring steel. It basically has a memory, almost like it'll go right back into, it's just like a springy piece of steel. And the memory, it'll go back into where the shape or form that it is here. Okay. You can see it moving and it goes right back. That's why I'm saying you don't need the springs inside the shocks with this. This is going to provide more than enough without having your springs in your shock. Now, getting into this mod, depending on what type of driving you're going to do, if you're going to do this modification, I would recommend picking you up. No matter what, I would recommend doing some kind of anti-wrap bar. Whether you buy A&M wrap bar, whether you buy RC4WD drive wrap bar, I'd personally highly recommend the RC4WD drive anti-wrap bar. If you're going to do this, I would highly recommend an anti-wrap bar. I've gotten to the point where I can push these trucks pretty far, and I know to the point where I'm going to break something, so I know when to let off of it more. And you'll get that way when you start running these trucks a lot. I mean, I have never broken the leaf on any of these trucks. I have broken one half shaft in the front that was a dog bone axle, but that was me being stupid, overpowered, and pulling and had weight on it. But I'm not getting into that right now. We're going to stay on track with this. You might want to really consider buying an anti-wrap bar if you're going to do this. Unless you got tons of experience driving the trucks already, you'll probably be fine. So back into this, we got spring steel. That's what we got right here. So what I do is you want to leave your you want to set your leaf spring pack how you want it. You figure out how you want your leaf spring pack. This is how I do mine. This is the medium leaf. This truck is medium leaf in the front, I do believe. Yes, medium leaf front, medium leaf back. I'm not sure what all that didn't pick up, but what we were saying was the new truck, the new extra cab here, and then my buddy's red 4Runner, RC4WD drive has improved. This is the old pack, the old leaf pack right here that has like the stiffer springs. The newer trucks we've noticed come with like not the super soft reds, but the soft. So you'll have the soft blacks on these newer RC4WD drive trucks versus the red super softs, which are super soft. So I'm running the reds. I went over that with the yellow 4Runner over here in the background. So you guys can go back and watch that video. So it does have the reds on it. You got to tune these things how you want them. It's like tuning a shock, but you're using leaves. That's why I recommend go on by Amazon, go buy like your cheap leaf spring packs. I think you can get like $7, $8. You can get an entire cheap leaf spring pack of just whatever brand off of Amazon. Buy some of those. I've acquired so many leaves over the years, buying and trading and stuff with different models. I have a bunch of stuff here to choose from. Go online and shop around, look at different leaf springs. They'll give you lengths. They have different tensile strengths. Tensile strengths, what I mean is in the spring steel. And then you can just mix and match. You can tune these things like crazily without going and blowing $200-$300 on a special set of shocks and a special set of, custom-made leaves. But back into it now. So what we're going to do here, this is set up how I have this packed together, exactly how that truck is. So what you're going to do here, you're going to leave this bolted down to your front or rear end. Doesn't matter whether you're working with the front or the rear, it's the same. So you'll have your spring pack here. You want to keep these together. Definitely keep these together like I have here. And what I do is I just take the front end or the rear end, whichever one I'm working on, and you're going to take your eyelets here, the ends of your spring pack, and I just bend them a little bit down. This is what I do. I just work them, okay? And I just work them down. That's what I do. And this takes out some of the tensile out of the steel, and it starts flattening out your leaf spring. And I go to the back, and I do the back a little bit, and you just got to work them. And you work them like that and take some of the tensile strength out of your leaf. You can see the leaf start bending, and it starts getting softer. Now, most of these RC four-wheel drive trucks will come with the wheelbase not exactly, in my opinion, where it should be. They make special brackets you can buy to move your leaves around and all that garbage you don't really need, because when you do this, it fixes the wheelbase. You don't need to buy special brackets to move this there, move that there. If you do this right here with your leaves, the leaf pack will work better, and it'll actually center your wheels how it should be in your wheel wells on pretty much all the RC4 drive trucks. So that's what I do. I just keep working these until I get them to the point where I want them. Okay, until I get them, bent around. You'll have this pack here and this pack here. There'll be another leaf over here. As long as you can keep these flat, you can go onto like your eyelets, look down your eyelets and see the point where you're at. Don't bend them too far. Just work them easily. I don't have it here. I have a little level that my buddy gave me that I put on the eyelets. It's a little teeny tiny bubble level to make sure I'm getting them all leveled. That's what I do. I lay that little level across them. You can eyeball them and get them pretty close. I don't see the level, but you could put any kind of little bubble leveler. Oh, right here it is. You can put any kind of, I'll just put this, I'll put like something across it, like a piece of popsicle stick across it, and I'll set this and make sure that the eyelets are all bent level front and rear. That's what I do with this. You can eyeball it and see that too. My buddy eyeballed his, and he did his. So he did this with his midnight truck, and it was like night and day difference. I wish he was, here. He might comment in the video because he watches. He did this with his midnight truck, and he was like, holy crap, man. He was like, you're so right. He was like, it was like night and day difference that I got out of that truck. I mean, he gains so much travel. It scales it out a little better. It centers your wheels and your wheel wells better. It does lower the stance of the truck a little bit. But he was all about more of the scale stuff, so he loved that it lowered the truck a little bit. He still clears the same size tires that he was running on it previously. What I was saying was, if you're just like wanting to go out and just run the truck, your leaf springs over the time on the trail, bouncing up and down like this will take the spring tension. That's why guys say run it and they break in. They do wear in. If you just take this thing out and you run it and use it, the harder you are actually using it, by I mean driving it maybe on rough sections a little quick, not fast or it's rolling over constantly, but you know, because the more you're doing this at a faster pace, that metal will actually heat up and it will start taking, literally heat will build up in spring steel. So it will take the spring tension out. That's what guys are saying when they break in. That's what they mean when they break in. They're breaking in, they will. But doing this little trick I showed you here, this just kind of speeds up the process a little bit. You're taking some of that spring out of it. Some guys I've seen take them and flatten them completely out. You can see here I'm flattening them all the way out. Nothing's breaking. You know, you can do that right there too. You can do that. But taking these ends right here and just bending them around, and you can bend them right back if you don't like what you got. There, we bent it right back. That's all you got to do. And the more you actually do that, the more you're taking that spring tensile strength out of it. That's why I said I'd recommend getting an anti-wrap bar when you're doing this. So, you know, just in case you're going to be rougher on it, because you are taking some of the spring tension out of the leaf, so you might get a little more axle wrap out of it. I personally haven't had any trouble. There's no anti-wrap bar on this truck right here, and I've ran it several times out on the trail, and I haven't had any issues with that. So that's our leaf spring, our little tip with using your stock stuff. That's all this was just for stock purposes. And it doesn't matter what pack you go with. You can go with your super long helpers, your small helper, your medium helper. However you're doing it, it doesn't matter. It's the same. Just tune your leaf springs. It's all leaf spring tuning. Hey, little Dungeon Master's down here. She's on her spring break. So let's get into your buying options, okay? So I'm going to stop it here and restart. All right, so go ahead. We got lamb chops down here helping. All right, so your buying options, guys, you got your red leaf pack. You can just go straight to buying your red leaves that you buy from RC4WD. I have them. I told you on the yellow 4Runner. They work well, but if you have a lot of weight, I would highly, 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 highly recommend buying the anti-wrap bar if you're going to buy the red leaves. Don't just run the single red leaves. It'll just wrap up and be junk in a matter of seconds. You're still going to have to run a helper with those. I would still highly recommend running an anti-wrap bar 100% with the red leaves. That's one of your buying options. You can just toss the red leaf on there. I like the super softs that I have on the yellow 4Runner. They work really well. But you're going to have to drive a lot more scale and 100% anti-wrap bar on it. And you're going to have to probably build the pack anyways a little bit. You're going to have to tune it either way. That's just my experience. Now, they are making these in the black softs. Not the super softs. They're just softs. So it's kind of like you have hard. The new trucks kind of have these in the soft. I would recommend getting the black softs. Those are my favorite ones I found to use. And if you've got one of the new trucks, they have these anyways. They have the softs in them anyways. So just doing this with the softs, you're going to get, you know, really good suspension working action. It's going to work great if you do this modification right here. Let's see. Let's dive into, you can buy the Twisted Fab. I don't have any of the Twisted Fab stuff because, like I said before, it's not my jam. I know you have to run, like, really, I think, kind of expensive, long, super travel shocks with his stuff. I'm not sure of that. Maybe you don't. I have no idea. I don't have experience with that. But that is one of the options. You can, like, contact Twisted Fab, and you could be like, hey, man, this is what I'm looking for. I'll probably never own. I have a friend that has that set up. To me, it's just, you know, he wanted that crazy ridiculous. Like, I think he ended up getting, I still think he only got like an inch more travel, maybe a little more. I think my trucks usually get about 4.5. My 4Runner over here, the yellow 4Runner, will actually almost push to 5 inches of travel on it. I've got almost the same amount of travel out of my 4Runner setup as he's got out of that real expensive shock pack. But, you know, it is what it is. If that's what you want, it's a buying option there. So, moving into now, since we're talking about his shocks, we'll just dive into shocks and shock hoops here. Sorry this video's gotten kind of long. I try to give you guys the information. That's what I'm trying to do here. So let me stop this, and then we're going to move these. And I've got two options here. I don't have the third option here because it's a Glendale, however you say it, whatever, shock hoop, which are actually over here on my Rust Bucket K10. So let's get into that. Okay, so shock tuning. So if you do these modifications that I have been breaking down with you here, well, taking the leaves and, working them and getting more travel. One thing that you're going to notice on the front of these trucks, okay, you're going to have to move your servo up no matter what, even without running a taller shock hoop. My buddy and I both have had to put spacers under our servos. We are running 3mm spacers under our servos. That's what we're running. I've went to using just the cheap. I don't buy the aluminum ones anymore. I buy these from Amazon. I have put links in other videos. This is a M3 3mm by 3mm spacer right here. These are what we're running. They're just cheap. They go under your servo. You don't need those really stupid expensive. This thing is like, I think, $4 or whatever, and you get tons and tons and tons of M3 and M4 spacer kits here in a bunch of different sizes. If you want the fancy aluminum, by all means, buy the fancy aluminum. I have those too, but I don't know if I'll buy any of those anymore because this is way cheaper. Unless I want something to look fancy on the chassis or something, then I'll buy, maybe the aluminum spacers. So let's get into the next part of it. So you're going to have to raise your servo up because this is going to sit flat down when you do that. It's almost like a droop setup with leaf springs is how this works. So, there we go. There's our front. And I don't have, this is still running the stock, shock hoops on the front. I don't have the modified ones. I don't know if I'm going to end up running them on here. So let's get into how I've done, how you can get, I can get more travel out of this too. This is stock. This is this setup. Stock shock hoops right here with a stock 70mm shock in the front. Now this is just your standard cheap RC four-wheel drive 70mm, come out of the RTR box. I think the kits come with them too. I don't think the kits come with anything special. So when you take this out of the box, this is what this is going to have. Your 70mm front shock and your stock Trailfinder 2 shock hoop. That's what's on this truck right now, is a stock Trailfinder 2 shock hoop with a 70mm shock. And then that's the travel I'm getting out of it right there. I can get my fist under that without lifting a tire back here. It's hard to see. I know my arm's in the way, but I'm not lifting. So I'm getting about 4 inches out of that travel in the front. I bought these thinking I was going to go ahead and put them on, but I don't really need them. Now, here's what we're going to get into. You'll have a couple options here when it comes to the shock hoops. So you'll have this option. This is like the knockoff CC hand, $12 CNC aluminum shock hoop, which I'm pretty sure it's the same thing as the CC hand one. Or you can buy the CC hand one, same thing as this, was a little more expensive. Or you can buy the Galindo, whatever shock hoops for like 20 some odd dollars from RC four-wheel drive. Not really needed. I mean, whatever. If you want those, you want those. Whatever. They're going to do the same thing. They raise your shock the same height. I have all of them here, and I've compared everything. But if you're going to do this modification to get the full potential out of it, you're going to want to step up to an 80 millimeter shock that we have here, okay? So this is a perfect match, okay, for your taller shock hoop, and you're going to get way more travel out of your front end than you are, and you'll see right here what I'm talking about. That's eyelet to eyelet. See the difference that you're going to get. Believe it or not, that will make a difference. Going to that 80 millimeter shock will make you that much more travel. That's fully extended all the way out on both of these right here. They're both into my fingers. It's about the same comparo right here. Let me get them up here. Okay. There you go. So you're going to get, that will make a difference if you're wanting performance. For me, I got these thinking I was going to put them on the extra cab. I don't need any more. I'm happy with it. So you're going to want to step up to an 80 millimeter shock. You can buy these super stupid cheap. They're not expensive if you buy the regular ones. What I was saying was, I think if you have a new K10, it's an 80 millimeter and an 80 millimeter. I think all those trucks all utilize the 80 millimeter shock on them. So you're probably going to be good. You're not going to have to buy any more shocks to get, a little more travel out of the front end of it. But that's the setups I'm using. My Rust Bucket Blazer has the 80 mil with the taller shock hoops. My Yellow 4Runner has these shock hoops with the 80 mil shocks. The Rust Bucket K10 has these shock hoops. Not these shock hoops. It has a Glendale, whatever shock hoops, and it has the 80 millimeter shocks in the front. I can't see really putting any more than an 80. Some guys I've seen said something about a 90 in the front. You're definitely going to have issues with your servo. You're going to have to raise your servo way high. If you're going to run more than an 80 mil in the front of it, you're definitely going to have to put some big spacers under there, or relocate your servo or mount your servo differently. That's just what I've ran into so far. Let's see. I'm trying to cover this completely and fully for you, Kevin. It's the same way if you buy like the dual Chevy, the guys that run like that one Blazer. Like I got my flatbed has the dual mounts on it. That dual mount is set to use 80 millimeter shocks. It does give you a little more articulation out of it. I think articulation's blowed way out of proportion, especially for scale trucks. That's just my opinion, though. I think guys go a little overboard with that crap, wanting crazy. If you're doing crazy, stupid rock stuff, first off, you didn't pick a great truck for it to begin with. I'm not saying they won't do it, because I've done it and others have done it, and you can do it. I'm just saying it would have been easier, or just buy a link kit and throw under it. You're definitely going to save money just buying the RC4WD drive link kit and a decent set of shocks, I think, than going out and buying one of them crazy, super stupid expensive leaf kits. Now, if you buy the crazy, super stupid expensive leaf kits, the custom stuff the guys are making, it's going to look more scale than throwing the coil shocks and the links on it. But, I mean, you're going to spend more money, I'd imagine, doing it the other way. And you're probably going to risk breaking more often than probably just throwing some links and a good shock under it. You can actually throw a link kit under one of these trucks, and you can still utilize these. The more expensive shock that RC4WD drive sells is sealed up nicely. I have a friend running those, and I think he kept his internal springs in here, and then he just used his weight like regular link crawler would, and he just the weight inside of his shocks, and use that to tune the return and all the blah 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 stuff on that. And he put a link kit on his TF2, and he's happy with it, and he likes it that way, and it works. I went out and ran with him one time, and I had a leaf truck that I had done up. It was actually my TF3, and my TF3 hung with him all day, with him and with the links, and mine with the leaf springs. So a lot of it's driver too. So, but hopefully, Kevin, this kind of helps you out, man. I know this is going to be a super stupid long video. I didn't know how else to do it. This is the best information I could give you guys, and a way to save your money and just utilize what you have. Because that's what I would rather do. I would rather be able to take the truck out of the box and modify what I have to go out and enjoy it. if anybody else, you know, has any ideas or anything like that or whatnot, then just let me know. I'm going to do some tire stacking here and do a photo montage of this truck with different articulation and balance and stuff for you guys. And that way you can see that here on camera. And we'll do that now.
Closer, closer, closure.